You are listening to the audio production of Change Your World, How Anyone, Anywhere Can Make a Difference by John C. Maxwell and Rob Hoskins, published by HarperCollins Leadership and read by John Maxwell. Please note that you may download an accompanying PDF that provides enhanced materials for this audiobook. To download the PDF, please visit harperfocusaudio.com.
Hi, John Maxwell here. I'm very excited to share with you my book, Change Your World. I'd like to talk to you just for a moment before I start reading it to you. This is the book that I've always wanted to write. Now, I've written 80-plus books, and people always ask me, John, what was your favorite book? And I always tell them it's the book that I'm writing, and that's been something that's been very comfortable with me as an author. I always have felt that the book I'm writing ought to be the one that I care the most about so that I can give the reader just the best book that I possibly can provide for them. And yet, when I think of Change Your World and all the books that I've written and all the experiences that I've had, this truly is my favorite book. And I think it's more than my favorite book because it's the one that I've just written and I'm reading to you. But it's my favorite book because it's the one I think I was destined to write. Let me just tell you a quick story. When I was in my 20s, my assistant where I worked gave me a Christmas present. It was a book. I opened it up, and the title was The Greatest Story Ever Told. I opened the book because I love to read, and I was surprised when I opened it to find out that all the pages were blank. And so I quickly looked at her. I was kind of confused. The title was The Greatest Story Ever Told, and all the pages were blank. And I said, Eileen, I said, I don't quite understand. She said, well, just look at the very first page. And she had written me a personal note that basically said something like this: John, your life is before you. On the pages, I want you to put your dreams, your hopes, your deepest desires for your life. This is the book that you fill the pages in, and I want you to write the greatest story ever told. I took that book home with me, and the next day I decided to start telling what I would consider to be my story, the greatest story that I could tell. And the first words, as I wrote on those pages, was, I want to make a difference. Now, I was young, and I didn't know how I was going to make a difference. I didn't know when I was going to make a difference. I did know why. I wanted to make a difference because I felt that's why I was created, to add value to people and help them. And so I basically, over the next couple of months, filled every page in that book, and I wrote kind of my story. I was an author before I ever became an author. That book, of course, was never published. But it was the seed that was planted within me, and it was the start of the passion that I have in my life to really make a difference in the lives of others. So when I talk about Change Your World 80-some books later, this is kind of the I want to make a difference book that I truly believe will make a difference for you. And that's why I'm very excited that we're going to have some time together. I'm very excited that I get to read it to you. And I hope as I read it to you that there'll be times you just turn it off because you've got to really think about something I've just said. And you maybe need to take some notes or reflect. You see, I'm hoping that this book becomes contagious, that you become more than just a listener of an audiobook. What I really hope is that as I talk to you, you'll begin to say something like, I feel that way also. Wow, that's kind of what I always wanted to do or what I always wanted to be. You see, I think we're going to connect because I think we were created to really be our brother or sister's keeper and to add value to them. And I think that's what brings a fulfilling, significant life to you and to me. So when I began to prepare to write this book, I felt that I needed a partner. I needed someone else that had the same experiences I had, but maybe different or greater or better experiences than I had. And so I asked a wonderful longtime friend, Rob Hoskins, who's the present CEO of One Hope, an amazing work of adding value to people through literature around the world, literally placing hundreds of millions of just personal growth, self-help, biblical principles in the lives of people that really can help them to better themselves and add value to themselves and to others. So Rob and I had some long talks, and he said he would help me, and boy, he really did. I found that 1 + 1 doesn't really equal 2. It equals 3, maybe 4. I don't know. In this book, sometimes I thought we maybe got up to a 5 or 6. We just kind of multiplied and compounded each other. So this is Rob and me together. Of course, I've been selected to do the reading of it. I think it's because I'm the old man of the two and maybe the older brother. And I'm delighted to do it, but I'm not only representing myself, I'm representing Rob Hoskins, a leader of leaders, a man who really makes a difference in literally millions of people's lives, and he's made a difference in mine. He's going to make a difference in yours. I think we both are just going to come alongside of you and, again, be your friends and do our best to add value to you. So I'm very excited to get into Chapter 1 and start this wonderful journey. And again, remember at any time that, maybe what I'm saying and reading to you just speaks to you, turn that audiobook off for a moment. Maybe take some notes or put down your thoughts. You see, what I'm hoping will happen is, as I talk about making a difference, it will spark you until you'll say, wow, I know where I can make a difference, and I know who I can make a difference with. And hey, I'm finally maybe even understanding why I can make a difference. So let's get started. I think you're kind of like me. We both want to make a difference. Chapter 1. We can't wait for change. St. Augustine of Hippo wrote, "Hope has 2 beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not remain as they are." Rob and I are very excited to read these words to you, but we want to say something right off of the top. You see, this book is written for you if you want to change your world. Going through the pages of this book, you're going to learn about Missy, a volunteer at a school who was asked to share her apple, discovered hungry children, packed food into backpacks in her garage, and started a program that today feeds 87,000 kids. Missy changed her world. Brian, who took his childhood trauma and pain and used it to build a safe place for sexually abused children so that they could live with hope, dignity, and unconditional love. You see, Brian is changing his world right now. And Ethan, a 3rd grader who put his hand over his heart and asked, "Mr. Maxwell, do you ever feel deep down here in your heart that you want to make a difference?" You see, Ethan is just beginning to change his world. So this book, Change Your World, is written for you if you want to change yourself, because you're going to be changed as you learn about Charlie, a high school dropout with no sense of purpose in her life, who spent 5 months working with children in the slums of Africa and said, "I came home a totally, radically changed person." Charlie has changed, and now she is changing her world. Or Rene, a man in Mexico who searched for his brother's murderer for 10 years so that he could exact revenge, but learned the value of forgiveness at transformation tables, chose to forgive the man, and that changed his family's history. Rene was changed, and his life is getting better. Or Yamila, a timid young woman from Guatemala who gained the courage and confidence to take a better job when she adopted a more positive attitude, and now she helps others in the villages surrounding her home. You see, Yamila has changed and is now helping others change. You see, this book, Change Your World, is written for you if you want to be part of a transformational movement. because you're going to be inspired to learn about Sam, the owner of a company that makes outdoor furniture, who started making plastic face shields for medical workers, braving the COVID-19 pandemic, and brought together the people in his small community while they all began to make a difference. You see, Sam helped others create a movement in his own town. Or maybe it'll be Cerro Porteño, one of the Paraguay's most popular professional soccer teams, joined hands with a rival club, Olimpia, to teach good values to players at every level of their organization. And it's spreading to other teams and changing lives of those players in Paraguay. You see, one team helped another start a movement in their community, even though those teams were rival teams in the league. You're going to learn about Roy, who discovered that his son wanted to take his life because he was being bullied. And while helping his son, Roy realized other parents and kids needed help, so he started an organization that now helps millions of kids in 42 states. You see, Roy is part of a movement that is changing the country. You have the potential to make a difference by joining with us as we help others, or by maybe starting a movement of your own. Why? Because you can change your world. Rob and I have invested our lives in bringing positive change into the lives of millions of people. This book has been written to encourage and equip you to be a catalyst for transformation in your world, your family, your workplace, your community. If you are already changing your world, we hope to help you become even better at it. If you are not yet involved in making a positive difference in the lives of others, we hope to encourage you to get started, and we want to teach you how to intentionally add value to people, because anyone, anywhere, can really make a difference. Changing the world happens one life at a time. We are committed to helping people like you become a light of hope within your community. Thousands of volunteers have already become part of our transformation efforts, helping others to learn and to live good values. In fact, you can go to changeyourworld.com to check this out. In many countries around the world, they are making a difference through the 8 streams of influence within every culture: government, education, business, religion, media, arts, sports, and healthcare. Rob and I envision a day when people from every background in every country are adding value to people, making a difference, and changing their world. That day will become a reality when you and others like you commit to it. So the question is, what needs to change? Looking at our world, it's pretty easy to see that things could change for the better. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have better schools, better neighborhoods, more positive workplaces? Would you like to have a more connected family? Communities where people get along and work together for everyone's good? Wouldn't the world be better if people were more respectful, unified, and positive? You probably know intuitively much of what can be read in newspaper headlines. We have reasons to believe that our world needs to become better. For example, families are breaking down in the United States, where 9% of the households in 1960 were led by single parents. In 2014, that number grew to 26%. In 2014, about 2.5 million children experienced homelessness in the United States. Civic engagement and volunteerism, 2 characteristics that were once identified as America's strengths, have fallen drastically in the last 50 years. In 2015, 3.3 million people were victims of violent crime in the United States. An estimate by the Institute for Economics and Peace recently concluded that violence cost the global economy $13.6 trillion a year. Mental health issues are on the rise and are getting worse. Corruption is a problem around the globe. It is estimated that 40 million people worldwide are victims of modern slavery. Now, we could go on, but I don't think we need to. Problems that could use our help are all around us, everywhere. And we're betting you see things around you every day that you wish were better than they are right now. But don't let that discourage or intimidate you. Did you know that positive changes are possible, even huge changes? While we were working on this book, Rob shared some information with me that really surprised me. I bet it surprises you too. In 2013, a survey asking about extreme poverty, living on less than $1.90 a day, posed the following question. In the last 30 years, has the proportion of the world population living in extreme poverty increased, stayed the same, or decreased? Here are the answers people gave to the question. 55% said extreme poverty had increased, 33% said it probably stayed the same, and 12% said that it had decreased. What's your guess? I was shocked and pleased to learn that extreme poverty rates worldwide have actually decreased dramatically. Look at the graph in the accompanying PDF to see how extreme poverty rates have steadily gone down since 1800, and notice how they have plunged since the 1950s. And yet, we don't hear too much about that. In 2018, the Brookings Institute reported something of enormous global significance is happening almost without notice. For the first time since agriculture-based civilization began 10,000 years ago, the majority of humankind is no longer poor or vulnerable to falling into poverty. By our calculations, as of this month, just over 50% of the world's population, or some 3.8 billion people, live in households with enough discretionary expenditure to be considered middle class or rich. And about the same number of people are living in households that are poor or vulnerable to poverty. So September 2018 marks a global tipping point. After this, for the first time ever, the poor and the vulnerable will no longer be a majority in the world. Barring some unfortunate global economic setback, this marks the start of a new era of a middle-class majority. Now, this is great news, and this should give all of us hope. We believe if extreme poverty can be changed, something has been a problem for all of human history, so can other problems that are great or small. The world can change for the better. People like you and like us truly can be difference makers. Somebody do something. If change is possible, why aren't we doing more to change our world? The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu said, "If we don't change the direction we're going, we are likely to end up where we are headed." Well, the reality is that most of us are waiting for somebody else to do something about the problems that we see. We want change, but we hope that someone, somewhere will do something to bring it about. So what do? We wait for government to do something. We want health care, the system to do something, and we believe maybe education should do something, and certainly business will do something, and we imagine media can do something, and we wish arts and entertainment would certainly do something, and we think sports will do something, and we hope the religious institutions that they will do something. But the fact is, come on now, we just can't wait for change. While the influencers and institutions we listed here are all beneficial, the rest of us can't be passive bystanders. If we want the world to be a better place and we hope for conditions of need in the world to improve, then we need to change. We need to take action. Rob and I have spent our lives helping people and leading organizations whose purpose is to add value to people. We've traveled the world and interacted with people from every continent and from more cultures than we can count. And we are convinced of one thing. Don't miss this. This is key to the book. Transformation is possible for anyone willing to learn and live good values, value people, and collaborate with others to create a positive values culture. Now, that is so important that I'm going to read it again to you the second time. And as I read it this time, maybe you want to turn off the book and write this down, because this is the core of what the book is all about. This could be called the thesis of the book. It certainly is the passion, the energy that this book is wrapped around. So let me read it to you one more time. Transformation is possible for anyone willing to learn and live good values, value people, and collaborate with others to create a positive values culture. That means you can change your world. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to move to another country. You don't need an education. You don't need an organization. And you certainly don't need someone else's permission. You need to give yourself permission. You can transform yourself and the world around you, as Mahatma Gandhi said. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. But for that to happen, you need to change. First, change your thinking. I recently read The Art of Possibility by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander, and they referred to an old puzzle that I was familiar with, the 9 dots on a page. In fact, I used it as an illustration in my book, Developing the Leader Within You. But they examined it in a new way, which I believe is helpful here for illustrating the importance of changing how we think. First, we want to acquaint you with the puzzle. Here's the challenge. Find a way to connect all 9 dots using 4 straight lines without lifting your pen or pencil from the paper. Now, if you've never seen this before, go find it in an accompanying PDF, and I want you to give it a try. Now, were you able to do it? You see, most people have a hard time figuring out how to make it work. Why? Because they think inside the box. But the only way to solve the problem is to change the way you think and get outside of a self-imposed way of thinking. The Zanders wrote, and I read, "The frames our mind create define and confine what we perceive to be possible. Every problem, every dilemma, every dead end we find ourselves facing in life only appears to be insolvable inside a particular frame or point of view. Enlarge the box or create another frame around the data, and the problems vanish while new opportunities appear." If you think you can't change the world, your assumptions are putting you in a box. The Zanders explained that the assumptions we make often restrict our thinking and therefore restrict our possibilities. But they also tell us how we can change. You can shift the framework of your beliefs and thinking to one whose underlying assumptions allow for the conditions that you desire. Let your thoughts and actions spring from a new framework and see what happens. If you still don't know the solution to the puzzle with the dots, then you can find it again in the accompanying PDF. You have to draw outside the lines that you have arbitrarily imposed surrounding the dots. You have to change the way you think. Gandhi said, for things to change, first, I must change. Changing your world requires a similar shift in thinking. You need to challenge your assumptions from assuming you can't or shouldn't try to change your world to someone who can and should. You need to believe you can do something about the problems that you see. You need to believe you can make a difference no matter who you are, where you are, and with whatever you have. You need to have hope. Then harness your hope. You cannot overestimate the importance of real active hope for changing the world. Jonathan Sacks, in The Dignity of Difference, wrote, One of the most important distinctions I have learned in the course of reflection on Jewish history is the difference between optimism and hope. Optimism is the belief that things will be better. Hope is the faith that together we can make things better. Optimism is a passive virtue, hope an active one. It takes no courage to be an optimist, but it takes a great deal of courage to have hope. Most people would agree that optimism is greater than pessimism, but it's a fantastic thought that hope is greater than optimism. We want to invite you to move up to that higher level of thinking, more elevated than pessimism or optimism. We want to invite you to become a person of hope. We want to help you become someone who possesses a healthy amount of positive discontent, believes the world can change, and knows that you can be an important part of that change. We encourage you to have hope for yourself. Belief in yourself is a powerful thing. Psychologist Ellen J. Langer wrote about a study that she conducted that showed the impact of belief. Here's what she said. We explored the mindset most of us have regarding the excellent vision Air Force pilots have. All participants were given a vision test. One group of participants was then encouraged to role-play Air Force pilots. They dressed the part and, in uniform, sat in a flight simulator. They were asked to read the letters on the wing of a nearby plane, which were actually part of an eye chart. Those participants who adopted the pilot mindset, primed to have excellent vision, showed improved vision over those who were simply asked to read an eye chart from the very same distance. We want you to adopt a change my world mindset. You have much greater control over your ability to accomplish difficult things than you might believe. But you must have hope and believe in yourself. Do you know what convinces me that you should believe in yourself, have hope for yourself, and be certain you can change for the better? Because I've personally experienced changing for the better. I'm known as a leadership expert, but the most difficult person I've ever had to lead is myself. Thankfully, I'm growing, and I've gotten better in my ability to do what I should do when I should do it and when the motives are right for doing it. You see, I've discovered people can change. Over the years, I've discovered that people change when one or more of these following things happen. First, people change when they hurt enough that they have to. The most basic impetus for change is pain. From the time that we are first able to make choices as a child, we instinctively avoid pain. But a better response to pain is to change so we no longer are hurt by it. Our hope is this book will give you the positive pathway forward and provide hope if you're hurting. Secondly, people change when they see enough that they are inspired to. You see, early in my career, I was inspired when I saw that developing people as leaders had such a positive impact on them. The discovery that everything rises and falls on leadership changed the way I thought, the way I worked and interacted with others. Perhaps you've been affected by something that has inspired you. If so, that's fantastic. If not, as you listen to this book, you will become acquainted with the stories of people who saw a better life or more excellent future for those around them and who took action to catalyze change. Please allow their example to move you and open your eyes to the need that maybe only you can address. Thirdly, people change when they learn enough that they want to. When you believe there's nothing you can do about a problem, it becomes quite disheartening and demotivating. But when you begin to learn how you can take steps to start making a difference, it will propel you to take action. Rob and I believe you already have the desire and ability to be an agent for change. Maybe you're already making a difference and want to expand your impact. Whether that's true or you have yet to get started, this book will give you a simple, straightforward game plan to take the steps needed to incite positive change. And finally, number 4, people change when they receive enough that they are able to. The world is not looking for more dreamers. It's looking for more dream makers. Brad Montag, the creator of Kid President videos and television shows, stated it clearly. I love this. Dare to dream, but please also do. For dreamers are many, but doers are few. As you listen through this book and put what you learn into practice by taking action, you will start to see changes in yourself and the people whose lives that you touch, and you will help others to make their dreams come true. That's what Brian Jarrett has done, helped others' dreams come true, by giving them what they need to change. You see, Jarrett grew up in an unstable home situation in a small rural farming community in the South. His father would often disappear for days or weeks at a time until one day he never returned. Without the protection of his father's presence, Jarrett became a victim of repeated sexual abuse from an extended family member. He started drinking in his teens to cope with the abuse and to numb the sense of abandonment that he felt. Eventually, Jarrett became a person of faith and began to heal. He immediately wanted to help others, particularly the overlooked, the less fortunate, and the underdog. When he first started almost 30 years ago, he did a lot of youth work. As I began to heal, I began to feel the freedom to talk about it, he said, speaking about the childhood sexual abuse that he suffered. I say this all the time. Rodents and roaches play in the dark, and when the lights come on, they go find a place to hide. There was freedom for me in being able to talk about it, said Jarrett. And as I shared my story, I realized that thousands of kids across the country were connecting with my story, and then I started looking into the numbers of people who admit to being sexually abused. His heart was stirred, and he decided that he needed to do something about it. So Jarrett and his wife established Lonesome Dove Ranch, a place to help children who had suffered abuse so that they could begin to heal. Most of the kids they serve are in foster care. I didn't start out to engage kids in the foster system, but identifying children who have dealt with sexual abuse is hard outside of the foster system, said Jarrett. A lot of the kids in the foster system are there because of some level of abuse, much of it's sexual abuse. We founded Lonesome Dove Ranch in 2015 to serve the needs of these children who have been exploited and sexually abused. And it was born out of my own pain. Each week, the ranch hosts 50 children who are served by 150 adults, nearly all of whom are volunteers. The needs emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically are extreme. Volunteers at the ranch help the kids and serve them freely. We give the kids dignity and love without wanting anything back, said Jarrett. Most of those kids have only been shown love because there was an agenda. We have no agenda. Giving each child individual time and attention enables healing to begin within a week. The ranch's success with children has made it possible for them to open additional camps, so they now have 5 different locations. Jarrett took the hurt that he felt, the vision he saw, and the lessons he learned, and he used them to have hope in himself and make a difference. Then he asked others to join him, and with what he received, he had the courage to bring Lonesome Dove Ranch into existence. He is changing his world one child at a time. When your past, your pain, and your passion overlap, says Jarrett, you find the sweet spot of your purpose in life. You can find your sweet spot, too. You can be the change you want to see in the world. It all starts with changing yourself. As our friend Tony Evans said, If you want a better world composed of better nations inhabited by better states, filled with better counties, made up of better cities, comprised of better neighborhoods and illuminated by better churches, populated by better families, then you have to start by becoming a better person. The first step in the process is having hope that you can. Have hope for others. The changes you make within yourself will give you the confidence and credibility and hope to help others. You can become what we call a hope helper. It requires you to be positive and to focus on the positive change that you can create, not the negative situation you want to eliminate. Hope can move us towards something better and bring others with us. We like the positive approach to change that the nonprofit philanthropic Chandler Foundation takes to making a difference. They believe that instead of focusing on fixing poverty, we should instead build and promote prosperity. How? They say transformation occurs both top-down and bottom-up. From the top, leaders must possess good character and earn trust from their people. They write, countries with high-trust cultures, those where regulations and laws are fair and enforced, with secure and stable business environments and with trustworthy leaders, attract capital and investment, which drive economic growth and employment. From the bottom, people's dreams, beliefs, core values, and skills empower them to climb their social mobility ladder into the middle class, which they term the engine room of greater prosperity. Clayton M. Christensen, Afaso Ojoma, and Karen Dillon in their book The Prosperity Paradox agree. They stated, it may sound counterintuitive, but enduring prosperity for many countries will not come from fixing poverty. It will come from investing in innovations that create new markets within these countries. The negatives in life may attract our attention and open our eyes to the need for change, but only by being positive and by helping to create and offer a better way can we positively change our world. Creating positive change in communities is similar to developing people. Good leaders focus on people's strengths and help them to develop those strengths. They don't focus on their weaknesses. Similarly, to help others live a better life, you don't focus on their problems. You focus on positive solutions that provide a better way for them to live. Have hope for a better future. Journalist Linda Ellerby said, "What I like most about change is that it can be a synonym for hope. If you're taking a risk, what you are really saying is, I believe in tomorrow, and I want to be part of it." That's what Ruslan Maliatu did in Ukraine. Because Ruslan spoke English, he was asked to do some translation work for an American couple who had come to Kiev to adopt a child. When the adoption went through, Ruslan witnessed the joy of the couple connecting with their new daughter. Ruslan recalled, "It was like they had already belonged together. They just fit, like something that had been lost but now was found." That experience made a mark on him. Dale Carnegie said, "Most of the things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all." That was the situation in Ukraine at that time. There were perhaps as many as 100,000 orphans in the country, many of them who lived on the street. And Ruslan began working with an organization that rescued abandoned, neglected, and abused children. Because his heart went out to these orphan children, he began working to find families and homes for them. And he began to dream of a better future for them and for his country. He wondered, what if Ukraine could become a country that no longer had orphans? Ruslan began working with a group of friends to create a better future that he had hoped for. As their work began to succeed, people from other countries asked his advice, and his vision grew. That made him want to help orphans not just in Ukraine, but around the world. It is estimated there are currently anywhere from 2 to 8 million children living in orphanages around the world. Ruslan's desire to change his world, fueled by hope for a better future, led him to start World Without Orphans, a network of people who work to place orphans in families, not institutions. The vision is really for every child to grow up in a loving, caring, safe family, said Ruslan. Currently, the movement has launched initiatives in 38 countries, with an additional 47 nations they are working with for future partnerships. They have hope for a better future, and that keeps them working to make a difference. Hope fuels urgency. When you've harnessed a strong sense of hope, what should you do with it? Too often, even if we believe we should do something, we don't. And it's not that we tell ourselves, I'll never do that. Instead, we say to ourselves, I'll do it tomorrow. But then we get too busy and too distracted to follow through. And if we do remember, we say, I don't think I have enough time today. I'll do it tomorrow. And we miss the opportunity again. How can we fix that? By infusing our hope with a sense of urgency. If you think about it, the phrase, "we can't wait for change," can be read two ways. The first meaning is that we shouldn't hold back expecting someone else to start making the changes we want to see. But there's a second way to read that phrase, the way that a child would say, I can't wait for Christmas. It's a sense of anticipation, excitement, and urgency. That second meaning is what we need to adopt. And each of us needs to make it personal, from we can't wait for change to I can't wait for change. That sense of urgency can propel us to action. Here are some of our observations about how urgency works and what it does for us. Urgency starts within. If people resistant to change had a theme song, it would be the old hymn that says, I shall not be moved. But for people who want to change the world, they'd rather be singing, I shall not be stopped. Business consultant Rob Lillowen observed, have you noticed that people who make things happen in this world value and share a similar sense of urgency? Regardless of what people aim to achieve, whether in sport, business, or otherwise, those who set themselves apart from the rest maintain a sense of urgency in order to be the best that they can be. They choose not to disconnect from what they're aiming to achieve, and they pursue it regardless of what anyone else thinks or says, because their sense of urgency is an integral part of who they are. You see, change begins on the inside. We need to tap into our desire to see change happen and enable it to strengthen into a sense of urgency. Then we need to sustain that sense of urgency. As Ralph Marston, author of The Daily Motivator, said, success requires both urgency and patience. Be urgent about making the effort and patient about seeing the results. Urgency feeds desire. When you harness your hope and tap into a sense of urgency for change, it only increases your desire to see that change come about. You could call it a kind of positive, healthy discontent. But without that urgency, you lose momentum and energy. We agree with motivational speaker Jim Rohn, who said, without a sense of urgency, a desire loses its value. There's been a story that's been around for a long time that has appeared all over the internet in various forms, including poetry. The original inspiration for it was a real-life anecdote told by Lauren Isley in The Unexpected Universe. The gist of the story is that a man walks along the beach one morning after a storm has washed literally thousands of starfish ashore. And as the man walks, he sees a boy at the distance stooping down and doing something. When he gets closer, the man realizes that the boy is picking up starfish one by one and throwing them back into the water. Surprised by the boy's action, the man says to him, "There are thousands of starfish stranded as far as the eye can see. What possible difference can it make?" The boy holds up a starfish he just picked up and looks at it for a moment. Then he tosses it into the sea and replies, "It makes a difference for this one." I mentioned to my friend Tracy Morrow that we were telling the starfish story in this book, and she told me how it impacted her in a deeply personal way. Tracy said that she had known since she was a teenager that she wanted to adopt children someday, and even before she married her husband, Casey, they talked about adopting and agreed that when the time came, they would. After they married, they had 4 biological children in 5 years, so life was really busy. But a day came when their oldest child was 13, and they believed it was their time. Their plan was to adopt 2 boys from Ethiopia. However, as they were going through the process, they learned that there were 4.5 million orphans in Ethiopia. That information overwhelmed them so much so that they began to wonder, should we try to adopt more kids? Would adopting these 2 boys make any difference at all? They were paralyzed. Then some friends shared the starfish story with them, and it changed their thinking. The starfish story really helped us to come to grips with the fact that while we weren't making a significant dent in the orphan crisis in Ethiopia, it made a significant difference for our 2 boys' lives, said Tracy. And then she told me, to this day we have 2 starfish hanging in our home to remind us that doing whatever we can really matters. Rob and I admire Tracy and every other person like her who is willing to take action to make a difference regardless of how small their efforts might feel at the time. The people who change the world are those who want to and don't wait to. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "That which we persist in doing becomes easier for us to do, not because the nature of the thing itself has changed, but because the power to do so is increased." Urgency inspires courage. Yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. It takes courage to believe that the best is yet to come. That courageous faith will help us to win tomorrow, but we find it when we allow ourselves to feel the urgency of today. In Dare to Lead, Brené Brown shares an interesting discovery she made after talking to a large, diverse group of top leaders. We started our interviews with senior leaders with one question: what, if anything, about the way people are leading today needs to change in order for leaders to be successful in a complex, rapidly changing environment where we are faced with seemingly intractable challenges in an insatiable demand for innovation? There was one answer across the interviews: we need braver leaders and more courageous cultures. You see, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So if you influence just one person, you are a leader. When you add courage to your leadership, then you create opportunities for change, which in turn changes culture. Urgency calls for action. Malcolm Gladwell said in his presentation on his book, David and Goliath, the most successful entrepreneurs not only have courage and imagination, they have a sense of urgency. They are not willing to wait. They have a burning desire to get something done. What he says of business entrepreneurs can also be said of people who create transformation. They don't want to wait. They want to get something done. The feeling of urgency moves them to take action right now. Recently, I visited a school that my friend, entrepreneur Casey Crawford, founded in an at-risk community. While I was there, I visited a group of third graders, and a boy named Ethan asked me this question: "Mr. Maxwell, Do you ever feel deep down here," and he was pointing to his heart, "that you want to help people make a difference?" I couldn't believe it. I looked to see if anyone on my team had prompted him to ask this question, but it was very clear that the question was personal and genuine. "Ethan, that's exactly how I feel," I answered. "Every day, deep down in my heart, I want to make a difference." Then I called Ethan up and I gave him a hug and said, "You are going to change your world." Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like Ethan? Do you feel the desire deep down in your heart to make a positive difference in the lives of others? It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you have or haven't done yet. It's never too late to do something to change your world. A Turkish proverb says, "No matter how far you have gone on a wrong road, turn back." You can turn in a new direction right now, and you can do something to change your world. A right, wrong turn. Rob was recently turned in a new direction and developed a sense of urgency for changing part of his world as he was driving to his office in Pompano Beach, Florida. He waited as usual at a red light just a few blocks from work. Now, he normally turned left to go to his office park, but for some reason on this day, he felt compelled to make a right turn onto a road that he had never traveled before. It took him into a small urban community called Avondale. As Rob drove around, what he saw arrested his attention. He witnessed a drug deal, prostitutes soliciting customers in the middle of the day, gang members holding court with school-aged boys who should have been in class, and moms clearly under the influence watching passively as bunches of children ran around on their lawns. What he viewed in that 2-block radius, practically across the street from his office, mirrored the conditions that he had seen in some of the most at-risk slums in places like Mumbai, India, and Comas in Lima, Peru, and Kibera in Nairobi, Kenya. "I felt angry," Rob said. "I was angry at the conditions of my community. Right across the street from my work were people suffering, trapped by their circumstances. I felt the pain of those fathers unable to provide for their kids. I was angry at the waste of human potential. Angry because I knew these children, though no fault of their own, were trapped in a societal prison of poverty, abuse, and neglect. But I was also angry at myself. Angry that I hadn't seen what was happening right in front of me. It deeply convicted me, and although I was helping kids around the world, I failed to see that hopelessness lived next door to me." Rob pulled to the side of the road and he began to cry. Tears were flowing down my cheeks, but from deep in my heart, courage began to rise out of my anger. I began to see possibilities, how tangible and lasting change could come to my neighbors in Avondale. Rob was determined to do something. How could he, the leader of One Hope, not help his actual neighbors when he leads an organization that impacts children in nearly every country of the world and has offered hope to over 1 billion children, many in the most hopeless and hard-to-reach places on this planet? He had brought together people to help alleviate poverty, stop injustice, and prevent teenage pregnancy, suicide, and addiction around the globe. And he knew he could do something to help with a problem that he had just seen. And a sense of anger and conviction stoked his sense of urgency. Rob drove out of Avondale, and as soon as he stepped foot into his office, he started telling his team what he had seen that morning. Because serving children and youth is what One Hope does, these tremendous needs immediately resonated with everyone. They got to researching Avondale, calling people who could help, and began to build a plan to help to make positive changes in that community. Their research revealed the community consisted of about 3,000 people in 900 residences. The area would be termed struggling urban diversity, according to the U.S. Census. The people who lived in Avondale were mostly from broken families with single parent and were living in poverty. The public schools in the area had earned a grade of F. Crime was beyond high. In fact, Avondale ranked in the bottom 1% of U.S. neighborhoods for safety, with 776 crimes per square mile, in contrast to the rest of the Florida's average of 91 crimes per square mile. People in Avondale had 1 in 44 chance of being victims of crime and a 15% chance of being a victim of violent crime, more than 8 times the national average. Gang rivalries were also creating a lot of conflict in that area. Despite the danger, Rob's team learned more by going door to door and talking to Avondale's residents, asking them about their lives, listening to their concerns, and finding out what they needed. The number one answer was jobs, followed by role models for their children and English classes. Rob knew that to help break the cycle of poverty in those families, they would have to go young. Future success for people in poverty is tied to high school graduation. But you can't start by focusing on helping kids in high school. You need to start when they're younger. What's the number one determinant of whether kids graduate from high school? 3rd grade literacy. Along with other interventions, the most significant and powerful way to bring generational change to this community would be through good education, especially of younger kids with reading. Rob and his team committed to serving the people of Avondale, which required some hard task of themselves as well as enlisting the help of local organizations. Avondale changed us dramatically as an organization, Rob told me. One Hope became so dedicated to helping this community that we forfeited the for-profit space that we had in our building, and we donated it to become a charter school and a private academy for families in Avondale and the surrounding communities. All but 7% of the kids attending the school fall below the poverty line, but within the walls they have found a place of hope and love, and they're receiving an excellent education. In addition to founding the school and after-hour reading programs, One Hope also reached out to help adults. They organized classes in English as a second language, hosted health fairs, taught interviewing skills to job seekers, helped feed families in need, and provided mentors to help people grow. Their collective efforts have made such a positive impact that crime has gone down in that area from 776 incidents per square mile to in the 200s. Relationships between residents are improving, and the people of Avondale have hope for a better future. Not only is there widespread change in the neighborhood, but one of the students, whom we'll call Haley, found hope and healing in a very desperate situation. She was being raised by her grandmother because her mother was a drug addict and her father was in jail. Working multiple jobs and trying to do the best that she can for her granddaughter, Haley's grandmother enrolled her in a new charter school. It had become a safe, secure place for her, and Haley was growing and thriving. But then last year, Haley's grandma received a call that the girl's mom had passed away from drug overdose. It's traumatic for a child to lose a parent, and even harder when it's to drug addiction. However, Haley is going to be okay because she is in a place filled with love and support. A friend of the school who offers free counseling to any of the kids who need it has been doing grief counseling with Haley. When Haley shared with the counselor that she wanted a punching bag and gloves to help her work through her intense feelings, someone in the community made sure Haley received those items. Word also got out about the death of Haley's mom, and complete strangers raised money to give to Haley's grandma for her care. While the money won't fix all the problems they face, it will definitely alleviate some of the stresses during the hard time. When I think about Haley or look at her face, Rob said, my mind races back to the morning several years ago. I can't help but wonder if she was one of the children I saw on the street. What if I hadn't taken that right turn? Or what if he had chosen to do nothing? Would his inaction have doomed her and her neighborhood to an existence of illiteracy, poverty, and hopelessness? Instead, he sees a young lady not immune to the real-life struggles that face her and her grandma, but with a sparkle in her eye. She has hope, assurance, confidence, born out of the loving, transformational investments made by people who care and believe that change is possible. My life turned around that day as I drove through Avondale, Rob said. I couldn't unsee what I had seen, and no excuse could have been compelling enough to allow me to drive along my merry way. My first thought was, I must do something to help others. Soon I began to discover that the change I wanted for them began to change me, and I have learned that helping others helped me. Make the right turn. As I read Rob's story, you might have said to yourself, I'm not sure I can do anything like that. It seems so overwhelming. Where would I start? What should I do? I'm just one person. Could I really change my world? Rob and I are here to wholeheartedly tell you, yes, you can. You can make a positive difference. Because you want to see change happen and you want to live in a better world, you can make an impact. Everyone has plenty of reasons not to do something about the problems they see. Those are called excuses. A wise coach once told me, excuses are like armpits. Everyone has them, and they all stink. The reality is that we can make excuses or we can make changes, but we can't do both. When I was a kid, one of the cartoons I used to watch was Popeye the Sailor. You know the cartoon. The main character, Popeye, wore a sailor suit and had huge forearms with anchors tattooed on them. The mild-mannered Popeye always seems to be trying to stop Bluto, a big bully, from stealing his girlfriend, Olive Oyl. At some point in every cartoon, Popeye would reach a point of frustration and say, "That's all I can stands, and I can't stands no more." And he'd open a can of spinach, suck down the contents to gain superhuman strength, and then pummel the bully and rescue his girl. Popeye's solution was eating a can of spinach. Our solution is making a commitment to change. Do you see a need for positive change somewhere around you? Are you willing to learn and live good values? Are you willing to value people? Are you willing to help others, add value to them, and invite them to experience the positive impact of good values and good choices? If the answer is yes to those simple questions, then you can change your world. Hope is not far away. Change is in your hands. Don't allow anything to deter you. You can become a catalyst for change. And in the next chapter, Rob and I will show you how to do that. As I've finished now reading chapter 1 to you, I believe that you've been stirred by what I've read and by what you have heard. I can tell that you feel that you want to make a difference and add help and hope to other people's lives. I'm thinking now of a young lady that is in my coaching company, the John Maxwell team. She came to our conference and she heard me talk about changing her world and transformation, and afterwards she brought up her passport and she asked me to put the word transformation in her passport, which I did. And she went away. She came back later with a book, and she said, "I want you to sign this book for the president of Paraguay." And I gladly signed it, put his name there, and I asked her if she knew him, and she said no. But I'm going to. Little did I know that this young lady and her husband, a few months later, would work out a way to meet the president and take him one of my books and share with him that we would be willing as a company to come into Paraguay to teach values and bring positive change into that country. To make a long story short, that's exactly what happened. Gabby decided to make a difference. Now, what she wanted to do, was bigger than her. But she learned something that I want you to know out of this first chapter. You don't have to have all the answers to begin. But if you don't begin, you won't get the answers. It's the movement towards your passion of making a difference that brings other people, resources, things that you will need that will help you to change your world. Today I can say that Gabby is known throughout the country of Paraguay, with literally hundreds of thousands of people now in small transformational tables, learning good values, living them out, and collaborating with others to bring transformation to that country. It has been my personal privilege to go speak to tens of thousands of people in that country and see that the light has been turned on. Why? Because Gabby, one person, decided to make a difference. Did she have all the answers? No. Did she have all the resources? No. But she had what she needed most: an urgency, a passion, a deep feeling inside that she needed to step out and make a difference in her world. She did, and she's making that difference. And you, my friend, that's what I'm hoping is stirring within you right now. Maybe not to change a country, but how about your family, your friends, the place where you work, your community? It all starts with one. It might as well be you.